Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer! Zola! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it! And here's Limpar, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal in front. Welcome to the Arsenal Vision podcast. They say Eskimos have 50 different names for snow. Arsenal has 19 different ways to lose away from home. We've just seen the 18th. It's called the Atletico. This was a failed Atletico. It was a cracking Atletico, but a failed one. This is Poznan in my pants, or Paul as some of you might call me. Elliot is unable to join us today. As some of you may have seen, Elliot tragically passed away earlier this week. He's dead. It was a horrible, painful death. So he can't be with us. And Tim's a weaselly blog whore and needed to do something else. So he's not with us. But we do have the poet, philosopher, coach, Clive.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Clive. And joining us, first time, and we're quite honoured, is Oscar Wood, famous from Twitter as Oscar Wood. Thanks, Oscar.
Hello, it's good to be here.
Yeah, great to have you on board. I've been following Oscar for a while. I'm sure many of you have. He seems quite smart. Also, he occasionally tells people to fuck off, so that's good. I like that in a man. So, yeah, that was a game. Atletico showed us how to play with 10 men. I think we did a pretty passable interpretation of Atletico for quite a part of that game. But, Clive, let's let you lead the charge here. Any thoughts on lineup, setup, how we started the game before things began to go awry?
Yeah, he went through some nice rotation. End of season fare. Nothing really to take from the lineup. I think Jack wasn't able to play, I believe, because his wife's having a baby. So that took him out of the fray. Mesut Ozil's got a twisted sock, so he couldn't make it. So he was out of the fray. So I think he twisted his sock on the way to the cash point to pick up his wages, right? So not that I'm going to get too bitter because it's not that important, right? So a nice bit of rotation. Good to see. Well, interesting to see Maitland-Niles at right back. Again, yeah. I think that's a position that he could spend more minutes in. He just shows you what a real talent he is, but we may touch on him later. And Holding, I think he's well overdue those minutes. He probably, he looked a little bit, rusty in the game, but understandably so. He's not playing under 23 games. He's not playing many games. So he was well overdue those minutes. So he got some time to pitch, which was good. So, yeah, I'm a fan of three at the back, Paul, so I just have to cry myself to sleep about it. It's not going to happen. Even the fact we've not got a single point away from home, our manager decided that we look stable enough as we are. So, I've moved on from that emotionally. So, we just went to our normal sort of more of a V-shape in midfield now. We've seen a real three with the number 10 moved out the way. So we've seen three in there, which is nice to see. So, yeah, more of a 4-3-3 shape, which was nice, but nothing spectacular for me.
Cool. Oscar, your thoughts generally, but picking up maybe take this one away from Clive, but Iwobi, he's had a few games recently and variable opinions out there. His last game, I thought, was quite hit and miss, but actually he was very involved in many of the big plays, kind of assist, pre-assist kind of stuff. He was really involved in some key plays, and I thought he looked quite tasty in this game. What's your thought on the lineup in general, Iwobi, Mkhitaryan's balance, and kind of generally how you see Iwobi doing at the moment?
Yeah, so as Clive was talking about with the V shape in the midfield, it seems that Iwobi's been the guy they've moved back into that sort of central midfield role. And I think in the games he's played there in the last few weeks, he's done really well, actually. I think he was really involved on Sunday against Burnley. I think he had the most passes in the entire match. Played that well again yesterday. And I thought he did a pretty good job. I mean, it's hard to really assess the match given we went down to 10 men so early, but
yeah,
I thought he was a pretty big part of the good bits we did in throughout the game, to us.
The game sort of
Yeah,
spread out, didn't it, Oscar, a little bit? The game spread out, a bit of basketball like we would at 10
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah.
So,
I mean, it's very open.
so it's very hard to sort. It's very hard. I was looking at the midfield, looking at my TV, thinking there's a lot of grass there, not a lot of shirts with Arsenal on them, right? So just lots of people sprinting from zone to zone.
I mean, as a Xhaka pivot with a couple of wide men and one striker in front of them, so it's always going to be an open game. But
yeah. So what I thought I saw with Iwobi was more quality this time round. In terms of his overall touch and passing was a lot cleaner than maybe the Burnley game, even though his Burnley impact was very high and he was involved in everything. My first pass of the game was I was a bit frustrated that he was a bit lose the ballish, but when I look back on it, his contribution was very significant. In this game, I thought it was very good, very clean, and helped us keep the ball. I mean, one of the things about being down to 10 men, which we were very quickly, was we were mostly pretty good at moving the ball up the field and through the lines, especially in the second half. But even for chunks of the first half, where I kind of thought we were more under the cosh, when I looked at it again, we did pretty good in that first half. Sure, it was a bit more them, but Mkhitaryan, Xhaka, Ramsey, and Iwobi were all pretty clean with the ball when we had it, I thought, and certainly in the second half. What do you think, Oscar?
Yeah, I mean, I think we did pretty well with the ball when we had it. We'd not been prolific in the scoring front away from home, but I thought we created a decent amount, given we only had 10.
Yeah,
and given our away troubles this season.
I think Paul. I think what those players. As soon as I hear those names come out of your mouth, right, the first thing I think about is when they receive the ball, and how they shape it and how they can move it. And I think, but I'm asking myself, why are we so easy to beat? And I know this is not really a game to judge, because the spacing obviously goes straight away when you go down to 10 men, but there's just a lack of resilience about those players. There's not that consistent two-way presence. I mean, I was even thinking on the goal we conceded, we had an opportunity to play forward. We decided to play backwards twice. We go backwards and across into Mavropanos. And as he looks up, he's trying to see an option as the ball's coming to him. He doesn't see one. So then he actually doesn't really control the ball very well. His body shape's all wrong. And I'm looking at Iwobi, and I'm saying, come on, really sprint. Shall be an option for him. I'm looking at Kolasinac, and he's not quite showing. And so Mavropanos ends up choosing the wrong option, gets cut out, reacts, and the game story changes, right? So it comes back to, we talk about Iwobi, we talk about that presence. When he's moving the ball forward and he's got the ball as he likes it and he starts to punch through lines, you're thinking, yeah, this boy can do it. I actually believe that's his position, a bit deeper, because I think it takes away the pressure of execution and final third for him, but he can definitely travel the distances. But what he's got to be to make that work, much like a lump of our midfield players, I would say to him, you've got to be consistently present in the game, not just in the moments where you like the ball. Think about when we haven't got it. Can you have the right shapes? Can you dig in? Can you show the right resilience? And that's what we're missing. And I was watching the game again today thinking, how have we lost this game? Let me have a look. And okay, resilience and youthfulness. Those are the two things. So we had almost too much youth, and we didn't have enough resilience in the pitch. And I think when you have that, you lack consistent presence and concentration on all the movements in the game. And that's how we're getting rolled over, mate. Yeah,
I think Ainsley Maitland-Niles, I mean, that ball back to, we're apparently allowed to call him Dino now, which will save a few headaches.
That's good for me.
I thought it was a good ball, but it was a surprising ball and not one that Dino would have thanked him for in his one of his first ever starts. That's 3 in a row. But it certainly brings you back to the Wenger line about, you have a duty to play and develop young players, but they're going to cost you.
Yeah.
And this was a game, maybe along with Burnley, where Burnley worked out, maybe more the United game, where youth cost us, even though the performance were good the performances were good. The clangers they drop will cost you a result. But we've talked a little bit about Dino. Maitland-Niles is beginning to clock up some games, and you could see where he could play on both wings for us now. I guess my question to Oscar, if you're looking at next season, and I know most of us are keen to see him play in the middle, but does he still need at least another season, especially with Arsène's comments about how he needs to dig deeper, maybe put some more pressure on himself to grow and develop? Is he our left and right back, our new Oxlade-Chamberlain cover for next season? Is that where you'd want to play him for the most part?
I think so, yeah. I think he's going to go into next season as backup right back and an option in the middle. I mean, I actually think he probably could have played a lot more right back minutes this season, given that we've been running Bellerin into the ground in both competitions, and we've been resting pretty much everyone else in the team, but except for Bellerin. So, yeah, I was happy he got an opportunity last night. He did really well. So,
yeah, he does a passing Bellerin impersonation in terms of pegging somebody back who's got a head start. That ball he knocked off the corner.
Yeah,
the
recovery pace was there, isn't it?
Yeah, Diabate had like 10 yards on him. And, I mean, if I were that fast, I'd just do that all game long. That'd be so much fun. And he did actually kind of rise to the challenge. There was one stage, it looked like Vardy was off through the middle. It was in the first half. And he gets called off for offside. But Ainsley Maitland-Niles just puts the fucking crosshairs on him. And, you know, nobody catches Vardy particularly, but I think Maitland-Niles was just gunning for him. Can't understand why a young man with that kind of speed wouldn't do that just all day long, apart from it mightn't help his positional stability. But, I mean, it's just thrilling to watch him in full flow. But Clive, matched up against Diabate, he still seemed to let quite a few crosses come across.
Yeah.
And on the goal, Dino had a role to play in that. Early on in the phase, he didn't clear the ball. There were probably 5 people who made a mistake in there. Yeah. And Maitland-Niles was covering the back post and didn't really put much pressure on the guy who knocked it back. Yeah, and just there were 3, 4, 5 crosses where, not saying it was his fault, but they kind of, Diabate, he could track anybody for speed and he could cover them, but he wasn't cutting out the crosses.
Yeah, so when people judge fullbacks, right, let's just take it back a little bit. So when people judge fullbacks, like Bellerin, they always look at his final ball, and I always think to myself, I look at his progression, how he plays wall passes, his energy, how sometimes he has to look after that right-hand side on his own because Ozil's gone to the left-hand side, and he does it really, really well. And as Oscar said, we played him into the ground until it probably cost us in Atletico, right? So, So what I look for with Bellerin, his biggest weakness for me is boxing out the back stick. So by that I mean back post crosses, tracking your man, making sure people can't get the run on you, and really protecting that area. And I think it's a weakness of Bellerin's. And I think no one ever talks about it, but in his own box he can be a bit loose. Everywhere else, I think he's fantastic. So much like Arsenal, in our own box, we are young and callow. And on that goal, we didn't recover out of our box well. The second phase we didn't do well. We let Mahrez come back in, and it smashes across the box. And Maitland-Niles knocks it back into the danger area. Holding's got a chance to clear, but it's Arsenal, right? So let's pass to the nearest red shirt. So he tried to pass it to Mavropanos, I think, and they get a second effort, and we're back in. We're 1-0 down, and it just looks young and inexperienced. And to your point earlier, we have to accept this. I think we've had some rave reviews about Holding the end of last season, and Mavropanos looked like Bobby Moore for the first couple of games, right? But he looked a bit nervous from the start yesterday. So again, with young players, you get 1 or 2 good ones and 1 or 2 bad ones. 1 or 2 good ones, 1 or 2 bad ones. We've been looking at Iwobi for 2 years. And we're wondering what have we got there? You know, is he going to be Jordan Ibe, or is he going to be a better player, right? So yeah, I think we just got to wear it. It's not great. It's not great to be the only team in the four leagues without an away point in 2018. That's not great, is it? It's just not great.
It's not a good look.
I'm not big on stats, but that one's smacking me in the face, right? So, it keeps me awake. Right? It's not good. Right? So yeah, we gotta sort that out.
Yeah, Oscar, you've been looking at our away performances and our home performances. If I remember your timeline tweets, any wisdom on what the hell's going on there?
Well, it's a very strange one, isn't it? I think it's probably one of those. I mean, what's strange is that traditionally we haven't always been that bad away from home. I think if you look a few years ago, it was often the case that it was actually our home form that let us down, and we were sort of second best away team and fifth best home team or something like that. It was really last season it started to go badly. I think it started with that consecutive away defeats at Everton and Man City, where we took the lead in both of them and managed to lose. And really, it was probably the beginning of the end for the manager, really. As for reasons, I spent the last 6 months trying to come up with reasons. I've been struggling a little bit. I think it's probably one of those ones that starts with a little bit of randomness, and then it gets in your head that, oh, we're really bad away, we always lose away, and it just manifests itself from there. I mean, one thing Tim's always alluded to is about how teams at their place, they realise they can get at us, and contest us in the middle of, and that's a big weakness for us. Whereas when we're playing at the Emirates, they just sit off and allow us to play in our areas and get comfortable on the ball.
Yeah, it does seem like they go after the fact that we've got gaps, we've got spaces, they're going to get chances. I think my regret in this game was Atletico showed us that if you sit back, the home team has the pressure on them when you're down to 10 men. And when we got that goal back, we could have played a much cleverer cat and mouse, but we kept going like we were still a goal down, and they were down to 10 men. We came at them like feckin' spider monkeys, and our game management. Arsène, I love the man, but he uses the term, that we were naive. And, if you're going to associate naive with any manager, and I mean this in the most loving sense, it's amazing that he doesn't see in his own reflection where the team's naivety is. It just seems almost a reflection of the manager, his philosophy, and his love for attacking football.
I think the game management point is spot on when you consider the fact that in the Watford, Bournemouth, Swansea, and Newcastle games, we went ahead in all of them and managed to lose all 4 games. And I mean, I don't think anything can sum it up more than that, really.
Yeah, I mean, as we got to 75 or 80 minutes here, and we're getting a bit tired, and I mean, they're hitting us on the counter late in the game, and it's like, is this game management? Shouldn't we be? We're terrible poker players. We should have acted like we wanted to sit back.
So who's going to manage the game for us then, Paul? In this team? So this is
you would expect that to come from the midfield.
Yeah,
correct?
And what are they doing? Or what are they trying to do all the time? If you watch the game, they're trying to break, right? They're trying to break. They're trying to travel. Well, the reason why I'll tell you, I got loads of reasons why we've been beaten away from home so much. Right? We got no brains. That's one. We don't feel the game appropriately, unless it's a major cup game. Sometimes we walk on the pitch and I think we look unprepared. You call it naive, I call it playerish. We come out to play at all time. We have a purity about ourselves, a purity about how we look at football. And I'm afraid we encourage the opposition to have a moment against us. We don't look dominant physically. We don't look dominant technically. Right? So that tells you something. We're not most of the teams in the league have got a level of sports science and fitness now which means they can move with the top teams. In days gone by, there was a gap between the top 4 or 5 and the lower teams, and now they can all sprint and run. They can all buy, athletes around the world, scout them, and they can run. So you've got to beat them with quality. Got to beat them with technical security and game plan and flow and speed and directness. And you've got to challenge these teams mentally. And I think we make them feel comfortable. We play in front of them. We don't recover quickly. We normally get punished for our first mistake, which is unfortunate. But we don't say to them, we don't make teams fearful. And I need to, it's difficult to explain. You hear me talk about the fundamentals all the time. What's there to fear in our team? As you sit there now, going for that team, there's a couple of players that I think are showing brightness, but they haven't built their reputation up to say, I fear them. I fear those 3 or 4. And I think we need to have that so people make adjustments for us. And at the moment, we're not going to make adjustments for them, but no one's making adjustments for us. They are fancying us. They want to play against us. It's a nice day when they play against us. And that's what's happening, right? So, but I'm not just judging this game because it's a hard game to judge, another 10-minute game, right? But if you look back through the start of the year, Swansea fancied it, Bournemouth fancied it. They all fancy it against us. Right? That tells you something. We're doing something wrong. The makeup of our team is wrong. The makeup of the player types is wrong. And I sort of alluded to this after the 5-0 Burnley game, Paul. I didn't want to go too deep into it because it felt churlish on Wenger's last day. But 3-4 days later, here we are, right? Nothing's really changed.
Yeah. So, Oscar, we're beginning to touch on the topic of philosophy, management, change. I guess the current state of thinking on managers and possible candidates is Allegri looks unlikely. Looks like he'll stay at Juventus, or he's at least playing for a big move somewhere, maybe not to us. If you disagree, feel free. Vieira and Arteta are being floated. Some other names been floated. Nagelsmann, according to Honigstein, seems like a major stretch for him to be freed up and available given release clauses and other German politics. What's your current thinking on manager profiles and maybe even specific managers in terms of what you think this squad, this setup, or just the psychology of the club requires to go into next season?
Well, I'll be honest, I have major worries about the idea of either Arteta or Vieira being the new manager.
Yeah.
Simply for their lack of top-level experience at big European clubs. I mean,
yeah.
For us this is such an important time for the club, and to take that sort of risk on someone who's entirely unproven in managerial terms, to me that's sort of crazy. I mean, maybe Arteta's viewed very highly as a coach, but there are so many aspects of management where it's a complete unknown how he'll deal with something, how he'll perform. So, I mean, for me, I would definitely be looking at someone who has proven themselves in a sort of Champions League or at least a Europa League level club. And then after that, we're just looking at people who, the values that Gazidis mentioned in that press conference.
Yeah.
About bringing through younger players, playing attacking football. I mean, my personal pick is Jardim at Monaco.
Yep.
Who beat PSG, who last season to the league title despite having a much inferior budget. Brought through a lot of amazing young players. Really helped to develop them. Scored a gazillion goals. And also, and this is something I think about with the squad we've got. Last season he played a 4-4-2 with 2 strikers in Mbappe and Falcao, and that is the strength of our squad at the moment. We've got 2 top quality strikers, a couple of other good really attacking playmakers, and I think we need a manager who we think can get the best out of the strengths of our current squad.
Yeah, and when you align him with, say, because what I'm looking for is somebody who would align with Sven Mislintat and scouting and bringing through talent at different age levels. And Jardim obviously has done that with Monaco. He's not the scouting organisation, but he's worked with the scouting organisation. So you would think he would be much more on the same wavelength of our current setup than somebody like an Allegri, who's used to taking a team that's ready to win or nearly ready to win, make some big changes with some significant players, name profile players, and get back to winning ways with the team. And it just, I'm sure there's lots of people saying, well, why don't we do that then? Why not us? But I just don't think we're ready to win the league next year. We've got so much work to do, I don't think on the receiving end the club's quite ready for an Allegri or a Conte throwing their toys around because they didn't get what they wanted day one.
I mean, I would love an Allegri type, but as you say, I think the profile of our squad compared to Juventus and the position we're in, where he's gone from a team who were the richest club in Italy, who could always attract the best players, sign the best players from Roma and Napoli. It's a completely different test to come and work at Arsenal, where we're the third or fourth richest club, and we're looking for that extra thing that's going to raise our level. It is a different test.
And then, they've still got to plug into the Arsenal environment. I'm sure lots of people want to shook up, but I'm not sure Ivan, Sven and Raul are really ready to take a tiger by the tail out there. Not that I think Conte is a bad guy, but he wasn't shy about saying stuff about the club, about Chelsea, and maybe he just felt they didn't support him as he expected them to. A Mourinho, God help us, an Allegri, which I don't think, I've never seen him behave particularly badly, but I don't follow him that closely. But he'd have pretty strong ideas, and he has a reputation of winning that, again, people would say, well, great, we want him to get in there and throw his toys around, but I just don't think Ivan and co are quite ready for that. We might want a transition manager, but we want somebody who can kind of navigate somewhere between the two. Your thoughts, Clive? Where are you at on the manager thing?
Right, so Arteta is more of a man manager at City. That's what he's doing. He's been that second in command. He's really bringing the best out of people emotionally. So he's not the coach, the raw coach type. So I know he's getting a lot of plaudits. He's going up the betting charts, but I don't think that's the right thing. I think Vieira, he's unknown to me. He's my favourite ever Arsenal player. So, but that doesn't mean he should be managing the football club, right? So he's a bit of an unknown to me. I'm not going to comment either way. But when I look at this, we're talking about you're talking about the Arsenal environment, right? So I need to just again sit and think about this more closely. We've had an Arsenal environment for 22 years that was built by this guy, and a lot of the values that he brought to our club, that he sustained and continued at our club, they're known the world round, right? So, and I think it's important that we sit there and think for a minute and say, well, actually, we can build upon that and change that environment and add the level of fine detail, coaching, seriousness, accountability that we need to move forward, right? So, and I think, although I can't imagine it, because I just can't imagine it because I'm brainwashed for 22 years, that we are a club that builds people, builds players, and is a far more patient and progressive club. I think Allegri is exactly what we need. Paul, we've sat on this podcast for 2-3 years now, and we've spoken about the detail of coaching and tactics and formations and nuance and feeling the game. And then we're talking about young managers coming in. I'm thinking Allegri is exactly what this team needs to change our tactical outlook, flexible approaches to games, serious tactical detailed approaches to games opposition, to really think, actually, this club is serious. I think it's important that the next manager is gonna tell us what we are. It's going to say, this is what Arsenal are today, and this is what they want to be. And so if you hire an Allegri, you're saying, this club is serious. They want to be number one. He wouldn't come there if he's going to be supported. So they're going to have money to support him. So I want an Allegri to come for what he represents. I don't know much about him myself. I've watched little bits on TV and I've read about him. But he is a serious football manager. And I watched the Champions League games against Spurs and against Madrid. And what he did tactically in those games, I liked. I really liked it. I liked how he changed things. I liked how he motivated his teams to do things almost above what they actually could do. I don't worry about Italy's a different place. There's lots of old ready-made players in Italy, especially at the top teams. I'm not worried about that. I'd be pleased if he wanted to challenge of coming to the Premier League, where every other top manager in the world is residing. And if he decides to come to Arsenal, then throw away your preconceptions, because he's coming here for a reason. And I think that means that everybody in the board, the back room, the chief executive, the recruitment, the football operations guys, they're all behind it. And so if he comes, I'm expecting a club that we recognise, but I'm also expecting a different club with a different culture. So I think a detailed, hard-nosed, wants to win Italian that can play attacking football but also respects the defensive side of the game is exactly what we need.
Wow. Yeah. Oscar, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to what Clive said. I think in the end it comes...
Would he come, do you think?
I think he'll come.
I mean, I really have no inside information.
And I mean, forgetting reality, forgetting what's actually going on with Juve. Do you think Arsenal? Do you think a manager in his position would come to Arsenal in our position? Because I do have a bit of a serious doubt that they will look at us and say we're actually ready.
I mean,
I could see Klopp going to Liverpool as being very equivalent to our situation. A manager who's, he's done 8 years at those two clubs, and Mainz and BVB, and kind of built them from, the ground floor up in terms of where they were at, and worked within the club and doesn't cause waves and builds to, if there was Klopp Part 2, that I could see at Arsenal. It's not the level of the managers, the kind of project they take on. And to me, Allegri is looking for something, a club that feels like it's ready to splash the cash and is ready to go. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I think Klopp to Liverpool always made a lot of sense because he's a sort of, he'd build up from the ground and relies a lot on the sort of the fan side and the emotional side. And I think Liverpool always a good fit for him in that regard. With Allegri, I'm not really sure. As you say, it's about whether he wants to take on that challenge when he doesn't really have to, when he's wanted it at Juventus and already successful there. And it's also, I guess it depends.
You could see him doing Chelsea quicker than Arsenal, right?
Yeah, probably. And also, if Real Madrid don't win the Champions League final, it's not impossible that they'll be looking for new managers in the summer as well. So they'll be looking to keep his options open for that rather than committing to Arsenal in May.
Yeah. So when the new manager looks at our team, it seems like you can always improve, but the attacking areas are a strong area at the moment. Maybe there's something we need to do in terms of getting a wide forward who can take players on one-on-one. Midfield, we're well stocked with good players, but maybe not much fit. Something we've talked about a lot on the pod over recent times, and we've talked a lot about Granit Xhaka. I'd love to get your ideas on Granit Xhaka midfield, his season, and also what we need to do around him, because he's played every game basically, like Mustafi. They have a lot in common. They've had a lot of people pull hair out. You could say Xhaka's more steady, but God bless them. They've both partnered up with a lot of different players, played basically every game, almost every minute, taken some abuse along the way, some of it quite fair. Mustafi's been partnered up with every kid we've got, and a creaking Koscielny, but he's dug his own hole a few times too. Pardon my French. But I do see a certain equivalence there. When you look at Granit Xhaka, given that he's our most likely starting midfielder to be with us next year, what do you think the Granit Xhaka problem is? How do you think he's been doing lately? It seems like he's picked up. And what do you think the fix is? What's a manager do to fix that?
I think I've been a fan of him since his Gladbach days. So I'll try to keep a close eye on his performances for Arsenal. I thought last season he got a lot of unfair criticism to us. I thought he wasn't amazing for most of the season, but I thought he was pretty good for most of the season, and obviously finished it really, really strongly. And I was really happy when he put in that quality performance in the FA Cup final. This season, for the first half of the season, you can't get away from the fact that he was pretty damn dreadful. Defensive lapses.
He wasn't alone.
Lapses of concentration, but I mean, what stuck out more to me is that his passing wasn't particularly great either. He wasn't progressing the ball like he was the previous year, and he was giving the ball away a lot more. But I think since that Swansea game where he watched Lucas run past him for the equaliser, I think since then he's really come back to form somewhat. I think he's been getting stronger and stronger since then in the last few months. I thought he was probably our best player across the two legs against Atletico. And given his age and the fact that he never gets injured, he's one of the few players that I think we can rely on over the next 2 or 3 seasons. He's got a long contract, 25 years of age, never gets injured. We don't have many of those players in midfield. So I think unless someone comes in for big money off him, which I don't think is going to happen, we're sort of stuck with him. But he's sort of also the person that he's the best person we've got to build around at the moment.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that.
He's really started to show off his swinging the ball left and right and then pinging it up the middle quite aggressively in the last few games as his confidence build. He seems a lot sparkier, quicker on
earlier
his
season
feet.
he just wasn't hitting as many long passes or line-breaking passes, and he's started to do a lot more over the last couple of months.
I'd go a little bit further, Paul. I would actually say that if you ask me who our player of the year is, I will say it's him. Right? I think think about it. Right? He's fairly consistent. He plays every game, and I mean every game. Right? And for me, I think he's when I look at him, I see someone that's got a clarity about what he's trying to do on the pitch. And the only time when he plays bad, I felt, when he first got with Jack. I think there was a bit of a dance off about who's going to push forward. And I think we found his positioning was off. He was receiving the ball in bad areas, and then his passing was off. Now he's got the game in front of him consistently, and he's consistently the deepest player. He's not trying to go into the number 10 position and rotate with somebody else. He's just saying, I've got this. I'm going to be the deepest player, and I'm going to set us off. And since he's done that consistently, he's looked more consistent. So I would say he's our player of the year, and I absolutely agree with Oscar. We need to build around him. Everything else we have in our midfield are these multi-positional players who can play different roles, who can play a little bit higher, can play 10. We've got lots of 10-8s, but this guy's turning into a 6, right? He's turning into that player. And whereas the rest of them can rotate left and right and further forward. So, yeah, for me, he's the foundation stone. If the new manager agrees,
I think the clean.
Yeah, Clive, can I give you my player of the year quickly? Aubameyang.
Yeah.
I know what you're thinking. But
maybe you're
He's
hang
probably
on.
actually top 5, to be fair.
I think
Yeah, no, hang on. Here's my logic. If you can pick Xhaka, given that he was shit for three
no.
quarters of the season, but
Well,
really good at the end.
I don't think he was.
Aubameyang was brilliant
I
since
don't
Christmas and wasn't
I don't
shit
think
before.
he was bad before Christmas. I think there's a narrative around Xhaka. People, when he came over with his fiery reputation. People wanted a defensive midfielder. They didn't really understand what we had. We haven't surrounded him appropriately. We've surrounded him with a very attacking midfielder. When he plays for Switzerland, he has a more defensive workhorse next to him, which covers up some of his defensive weaknesses. And when he gets a bit tired on occasion, at Arsenal, we ask him to drive the car, put the petrol in, sweep the car, then polish the car. We ask him to do everything, right? And he looks around, there's no one near him. On those occasions, he can break, So, but yeah, for me, he's the one.
And he has described himself as a false 10. I'd be interested to see what Oscar thinks he is or will become, and how we supplement
I think the clarity of role is very important there, which Clive touched upon. I think that's why a lot of people aren't massive fans of him partnering Ramsey, but I really like it because when the two play together, you've got very clearly defined spaces where they play. Ramsey pushes forward, Xhaka sits and controls the area in front of the defence. I think that's perfectly what you're suited to.
Do you think he controls it well enough? I'm always in two minds about him. I don't think it's all his fault, the gaps that develop.
I mean, look, we conceded 50 goals this season, so there's clearly a lot of we need to work on defensively, and I think that is something you can think about instead of his biggest weakness is that he's not a great athlete. So ideally, you would want someone next to him who can run a lot defensively and carry the ball forward, because he can move the ball forward with his passing, but he can't really carry the ball forward like a Cazorla or Wilshere can.
Yeah. Do you like the idea of a mature Maitland-Niles beside him?
Very much so, to us, because he fits the bill as an athlete and as a technician, ideally. But.
Yep, well, he's dead right. He's just dead right. And then when people say the player we need is exactly that player, somebody who's switched on defensive recoveries, but can travel with the ball offensively, right? But what we do, and it's not, and this has always been my sort of Ramsey issue, we play somebody who breaks.
Yeah.
And that's why, I'm telling you, mate, that's why we're conceding. We have the holes in the middle of the pitch because we break without secure possession, right? So
Ramsey, Clive, reminds me of a Vietnam vet. You know, every time the phone rings, he hops up and runs out of the room.
Yeah, but when it works, when he sticks in the bottom corner, right, we all say, oh, what a great goal, right? And me included, right? But stylistically, I've always said it, I've been consistent, Paul. Stylistically, we don't dominate the opponent. We don't dominate the space. It's as simple as that. We have good players dashing around my TV screen, shooting off, rotating different angles. As soon as we lose it, it's like the red arrows going backwards, right? Trying to recover, tackling from behind. People say to me, but he's made 7 tackles. I say, yeah, and I look again, and I see about 4 of them were coming back from from top of the pitch, right, to make the recovery tackle. It's not what you want. It's not dominating the space, right? So one of the best midfield performances I've seen him have was Chelsea away. I said it before. He stayed in that central area and he dominated it. And I wish he would play more like that more often. But he sees himself as somebody who can score goals, which he does. But he's not scoring your Lampard's 20s. He's scoring 10, right? And he's scoring 2s and 3s against weak teams in one game. It's not enough for the price we pay for not controlling the midfield area, in my opinion. And stylistically, we need to do something else. And so we come back to the choice: who are we gonna build around? For me, it's based on what I've seen this season, I see one player with a clear role, clearly defined. I see lots of other players that overlap in attributes. And so for me, the one that's got a clear role is the one we build around.
Yeah. But Oscar, rounding that off then, I was hoping to feel really good having talked about Xhaka, but it still sounds to me like, while I agree with you, I often like the performances of him and Ramsey against the best teams under pressure, pressed in midfield. I still think that midfield two loses out against the strongest teams. Not that they shouldn't both be playing on the pitch, but if that's your two, if they're the two pivots or whatever, I still feel you need somebody who can give Xhaka, although he's supposed to be our deepest player, he still needs cover. And he needs somebody who can play out under pressure, kind of idealized Maitland-Niles kind of player. Am I wrong there? Is there another way? Is there a way of getting a Maitland-Niles, Xhaka and Ramsey into our team where we're still playing the kind of football we want to play?
Well, I think you're right in that that's a player we need, and I think in the transfer window that has to be one of the priorities.
Yeah.
But the interesting is to make things more interesting is Ramsey's contract situation, where if he doesn't sign a contract this summer, then we're in a position where we're probably going to have to sell him. So, yeah, I mean that completely reshapes what we're doing now.
Sure, and so I do feel like somebody's got to go. You know, if Jack's staying, I thought Jack was going, but if Jack's staying, I mean, he's not staying necessarily as a starter, but man, it ain't easy not to pick Academy Jack, Jackademy, I guess, if he's playing half decent, given, you know, his relationship within the club and the supporters and stuff. It's kind of, I mean, you hope the new manager is just going to pick who the team that needs to be picked for the game, and there's more rotation, which will be a big fill-up next year. But somebody's got to go to make the space. Yes, we'll lose Santi, by all accounts. But still, Santi wasn't starting this year. So, you know, where's the wiggle room? How do we get that player in there? If we signed it, as you said, Ramsey may be off, and maybe that makes the decision for us. But the new manager needs to be able to make a play to reshape midfield. We've seen Ramsey and Xhaka this year, and it wasn't enough. And yes, we could go into the market for an extra player. So Oscar, you got 50 million war chest. You got to look at least at maybe a DM CM type player for midfield. You know, Mustafi may stay or go, but if he goes, we got no senior centre backs left in the team. They're all kids. We got Nacho, but he's still truly a left back. And people think we need to do something about the goalkeeper. I'd argue check when he's been fit and when he hasn't been worried about the clean sheet record, while everybody and getting demoralised about the fact that it's been 10 games we can't get a clean sheet. I mean, his form seemed to take a real dip through all of that. But lately he seems like he's picked up a bit. I'm not sure that's where I spend some chunk of my 50 million. Where do you look, if you're still committed to a CMDM, where do you look to spending your money?
So I think you're probably right about the goalkeeper, actually, and I know it's not going to be popular with a lot of people who really want a goalkeeper. But if the reports about how little money we have to spend this summer are true, then I just don't see how we fill all the holes that we need. We need a midfielder. We certainly need a centre back with Mertesacker going and Koscielny getting injured. And Christ, look at our defensive record this season. We need one anyway. And I'm just not sure where you get going. I mean, you want to get a winger in as well, a proper winger, as you alluded to earlier.
Yeah. So there's four.
I'm just not sure.
You want seasoned players.
I'm just not sure where you get the money for the goalkeeper.
Yeah, that's 120 million, and we often turn a profit on our war chest. I mean, shit, we came out ahead after we sold Oxlade-Chamberlain last year in the summer. I know things got redressed a little bit in January, and I know that wasn't really the plan. We thought we were going to sell Alexis and go big for Lamar and all that kind of stuff, but that happens in summers. So just we may not end up fully spending this 50 million. To expand it, we may have to sell somebody. Maybe Hector is saying all the right things in the press this last week, but maybe he's trying to get the spotlight off him. Maybe he'll go. Maybe Ramsey would go.
The thing is,
we'll bump up the numbers.
If you sell Bellerin, you'd have to then sign a new right back, and they're still going to make the Miles the starting right back. So to me, that's never seemed like a sort of a funds making option, really.
No, and I mean, I
think it would much more likely to be Ramsey.
Yeah,
given his injury issues and the fact that we probably need a midfielder anyway.
Yeah,
I've always felt that. There's always going to be a tussle between Oxlade-Chamberlain, Jack, and Ramsey, and I felt that three of them wouldn't survive it. Right, so the Ox has gone already, and I thought Jack would go. Actually, I thought Ramsey would win that and be part of the rebuild. I heard he wants to be part of the rebuild. There's a contract offer on the table, but if I'm the new manager and I've got to raise funds, and this is all conjecture and rumour, I would look at the attributes of the players that I have and think, well, I have players that could potentially do the Ramsey role. I don't have players who can do the Bellerin role. I've only got one Bellerin, right? So why would I sell that player, right? So yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. So it could happen.
And Clive, even the money, I mean, we haven't seen what they'd offered for Bellerin, but the money Twitter's been talking about for him, I mean, 40 million or something in that range.
Who's going to buy him for 40 million? The only team that could buy him for 40 million. The market's
I was just going to say, we'd have to buy somebody for 40 or 50 million to get a good right back. So it's like, why do that?
Exactly. So we're looking at, according to the rumours today, looking at PSG's second left back at 20 plus million, right? So and it looks like a bargain to us because we've got all the money in the Premier League, but there's no market out there for players that are not in the Champions League unless they got something special. If they are, then they're gone, right? So there's no market. There is no market. Only Barcelona can offer a decent chunk of change for him, right? Juventus, are they going to spend 40 million?
They don't spend those sort of fees ever.
They're not going to do that, right? So don't worry about that. I think he'll be there. The Ramsey's a different option. If he could go inside the UK because he's homegrown, and that gives him a value. There's always been rumours of Barcelona. They look a bit leggy in midfield. I truly believe he would do really, really well in a slower league, in a league where running into spaces where you're allowed to progress the ball up the pitch, and what you do in the final third is really important. I think in a final third, then my views on Ramsey completely changes. But we pick him as a centre midfielder, and that's where my issue is. In the final third, mate, you can't track him with GPS, right? He's gone, right? So he's very hard, and they love that in Italy, and they love that in Spain, that extra movement around the box where he's really, really good, right? So yeah, if I was Ramsey, I would think about it, but he could be captain next year with a new $200,000 a week contract. We just don't know. It's all conjecture.
Yeah, and with the players who are moving off, God rest their souls. I mean, you look at like Mertesacker, Cazorla. It's not long before you think, well, we have the money. We can pay the wages. I know there's the limits on what you can increase it by, the 7% or whatever, but I think with a little bit of a shell game, we can certainly pay the wages to keep Ramsey. And this is a big contract for him, so I'd be kind of making noises that I was, kind of looking at my options. And he's seen what Ozil's on, and he should see himself as one of our key players and one of our star players.
The key thing is, Paul, is his injury, though, mate. His injury. You can't. You're looking at an asset here that you can't play 3 times a week. Yeah, we got one in Jack that couldn't walk through an airport security without the metal thing going off, the metal detector going off because of all the pins in his ankles. So we've got 2 players there that we're going to invest maybe £30,000 a week in. I'm looking at it. I'm thinking, okay, if I'm from a business perspective, yeah. I mean, there was some. I think I saw something on Twitter the other day. It didn't surprise me. I think it comes from 7 a.m. kickoff, and he did the minutes that Ozil's missed since I think 2014, and the minutes that Ramsey's missed And I think Ramsey had missed something like 1,900 minutes or something like that. It's the equivalent of 63 games. I probably got those numbers wrong. Look it up, 7 a.m. kickoff to tweet. And Ozil had missed something like 1,400 minutes, right? So, and yet there was the impression that Ozil always misses games. Now, you got to think about this. This is your asset. He's at 27. These injuries do not improve as they get older. So you have to make a decision at some point, right? But if we want to play, if we want to invest in him, then we have to build something that really suits him and not ask him to do 2 jobs like we ask him to do now, to go up and down the midfield and score goals. It's just not going to work. And so stylistically, I'd love to see him change, but he won't, because that's what he likes to do. So we need to either put him to areas where he can be himself, or we need to think about the future and say, from a business point of view, it might be the best thing to do.
Yeah. And a new manager is going to come in and say, he's either going to think, I really want Aaron Ramsey to be the linchpin in my midfield, or I really don't want it, because he's not a player you keep around and don't play. So it's going to be very interesting. I think things change dramatically.
One of the interesting things is we don't know. Yeah, as you alluded to, we don't know who the new manager is going to like and who he's not going to like.
Yeah, exactly.
We've had Wenger for so long. We know the players he likes, the players he doesn't like as much. So we know that he loves.
So easy to fall into that thinking.
We know that he loves Wilshere, but the new manager might just not. So it does change things.
Yeah, the new manager might come in and sell Aubameyang, right? we don't know, and buy Giroud back just to piss off Elliott, right? So that's so he might do that, and so we just don't know.
Joel Campbell incoming.
Yeah, all those loan players like Campbell and Lucas Perez going to become starters next season under the new manager. You never know.
Yeah. It's going to be very interesting. So any final words on moves we need to make over the summer for any rational manager incoming? Any final manager thoughts?
I think on moves for me, I am one for a goalkeeper. I don't mind Czech staying. I think he's great, but I think we need a goalkeeper, and Czech can maybe help settle them in. I want to see.
What about pulling Emmy back in?
Yeah, I don't think he's playing.
I looked earlier. He's played 5 games for Getafe this season.
Yeah, I don't think he's playing. That loan has not worked out, right? So he's 25 now, I believe. So he's not a kid. He needs to really make his next move work, because he's not playing enough games. I think a UK loan would be better for him, right? So I'm not sure what he's doing out there. I think we need a new goalkeeper. I'd like to see 2 centre halves come in. Definitely, yeah. I'd like a new left back come in, and I whole new back 4, basically back 5.
But you couldn't have a new left
spend on each of these players.
Yeah, well, I don't believe the 50 million rumour. I wouldn't go out and say we've got 200, but I wouldn't say, it's just that's just hedging, right? That's just positioning. Yeah.
Clive will not be restrained.
No, we're looking at this young Turkish centre back for 30 million euros. We got Holding and Chambers. I think one of those may go either on loan or sold, right? So, and we do need to buy somebody maybe with Mustafi, with Koscielny not going, but won't see until the FA Cup 3rd round in January. I definitely think we need to buy somebody serious in there of age, right? So 2 centre backs for me.
Listen, Clive, you cannot have a left back because you've got Nacho and you got Kolasinac, and you want a shitload of other players. Yeah. So you're not having.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
unless
mate.
you give somebody.
I've already decided. Right? Well,
and you're getting a keeper.
Yeah, getting a keeper. I would love the idea of a right winger with a left foot. Do you see what I mean? A dribbler that can really drive and score from that side.
Well, I guess we could saw it off and stick it back on the other side.
We haven't got that left-footed flyer up front, right? We need that player just to balance us out. We can move things around. That's a hole in the squad.
So how many players?
I've not got a centre midfield yet.
You're not counting.
So, on centre midfield, I would like definitely one. I like the idea of that of that Max Meyer. I like the idea of that, but I also I would. This is just me. I like a more physical player in there as well. But the game is changing. I'm conscious of that. So I'm more looking at, rather than the big Vieira type, because it makes me feel comfortable, you should always look at your sprinting speed and ability to get to the ball. That's where the game is changing, not so much size. It's agility, speed, change direction. And I think you don't need to be 6'3" to do that. Right? So I think our ability to sprint, we are slow. We have to speed up. So whatever we do is sprinting speed, intensity, repeat sprints. That means when, as Oscar alluded to earlier, when we played Everton and Man City away in that dreadful week a year and a half ago, whenever it was, they outrun us in the second half of both games. And that was the bell saying we've got a problem and we haven't listened to that ringing sound yet.
Okay, so Clive wants 6 players apparently. Oscar, how many? Do a quick count there. You want a forward? You want a midfielder? Anything else?
It's on me or Oscar?
Sorry, Oscar, yeah.
Probably one centre back, if not 2. At least one midfielder, one
Come
winger.
on, my son. Come into my house where we spend money.
We have got a lot that we need to do, to be fair. So
let's just do it.
I've lost you on the goalkeeper. Oh my god!
6. So.
I'd say 6.
I just.
No, I don't think we got 6. Clive's got 6 because he's deluded.
I say 6, but we're gonna lose about 10 out of the squad. You know, we're gonna lose about. You know, you think about Perez, Campbell, Jenkinson, Mertesacker, Ospina. You got Santi probably. There's names. We can lose a lot of players out of squad and we wouldn't remember half of them, right? So we need to add.
Well, like I say, Clive, we've got the wages, but what we may not have is the fees. Santi doesn't get you
Don't believe
anything.
what you read in the papers, mate. Trust me. Right.
You're at 180 million if you just spent 30 million on each of the players.
Well, we found a Greek centre back for 1.8 million. Right, so let's just see what happens. And
he got us red carded.
Yeah, but the world, it's all about stealing those free transfers. That's what it's about. You know, a lot more players are running down their contracts, and there's a few out there.
Max Meyer.
Yeah, there's a few out there, and that's the way to do business now. That's the way.
All right, 6 free transfers it is. Solves all our problems. Shuts me up. All right. Any more? We all good?
Mate. We're good.
Good.
You saw that bit on Arsène talking about the trees at Colney, did you?
No, I didn't see that. I've been away at work this week.
Have a read of it. It's quite got me quite choked up and already. He was been asked what's his final week look like, and he says, "Well, we planted 20,000 trees at Colney, something along those lines. He saw them when they were little babies. Now they're fully grown trees, and he's going to say goodbye to every one of them." And he comes back. He goes to France, Paris for a couple of days. Comes back on Wednesday, Thursday, I think it is, to clear out his desk, say goodbye, and then that's it.
Yeah, it's quite sad. It's sad. It is sad. It is sad. But it didn't need to be this way, right? But it is, and it's just the way it is, and I'm hopeful that maybe one day he can come back in a different role. You never know. Yeah.
I'm such a sad case, Oscar. When I was your age, I had a girlfriend. I was with her for 6 years. We broke up like 5 times. I'd break up. I'd get back together with her. She'd break up with me. Maybe I begged her to let me back. Anyway, she'd get back together with me. And then I had another relationship after that, same bloody thing. And I'm basically just like that with Arsène. I want to change. But man, every time I think about a manager, he sounds awfully like Arsène, but doesn't lose. That's basically what I've come down to. Keep the same philosophy, keep the same players.
Apparently he's something like 50. Apparently he's 50 to 1 to be our new manager. Wenger.
That's great.
Really? I can get that at 50 to 1? That's my manager.
That could be the title of the podcast, right there.
Yeah, all right. Great, guys. So, Oscar, really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on and helping out.
No worries, anytime, mate.
And Clive, as always, you were eruditely eruditious with your erudity.
Wow.
Thank you.
Educating me every single day we meet.
I am de-educating you. But that's it from the Arsenal Vision podcast. Thanks, everybody. Next time round, I'm sure we might resurrect Elliot, tell Tim to put down his blog and pick up his microphone, and we'll see you after our final game of the season. Thank you very much, everybody.